captioning. So you can open it by clicking on the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Today's session has been set up as a Zoom meeting, so we'd like to welcome you to have your cameras on, and please check to ensure that you're muted throughout the session. We'd like to encourage your participation through the chat and Q&A. I will be monitoring it throughout the session so we can be sure that all of your questions are answered. Today's session is full of interactive opportunities, so your contributions to the conversation will be invaluable. And now with that, I am going to hand it over to my amazing teammate, Dr. Danny Daher, and he is going to lead us through today's session.
Thanks, Janelle. Appreciate that. And welcome, everybody. We got a lot of familiar names in our in the room with us today, but thank you for joining us. My name is Dan Daher. I am a program support specialist with the SIP project, and I am based out of Riverside County Office of Education here in Southern California. And regardless of where you are from, and you are here because you work with SIP, and you know that our goal every day is to help students be educated in an environment that is intentionally designed, equitable, and inclusive. And hopefully today, we, with your help and all together, we can innovate and impact your master schedule to make sure that we are including all learners. Today's session is designed for, it's not designed for our secondary folks. So if you are here for elementary scheduling and elementary inclusive scheduling, you are in the right place. If you are not, and you needed the secondary stuff, please go to our Padlet. You will find everything you need there for secondary as well as elementary. You can use the QR code. You can, I believe the link is in the chat, Janelle?
Yep.
You're awesome.
I just dropped the link in the chat. And also, the session 1 for secondary, the recording will be uploaded soon. So stay tuned for that if you want to share that across your organization.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And so today we're going to be working on elementary schedules. We did include a processing guide. This is going to be really helpful. It goes along with our conversations today and stuff like that. And so if you have it handy, if you want to print it and use pen and paper, you're welcome to. If you prefer to access it digitally, you're welcome to do that as well, whatever works best for you. The hope is that it helps you engage, and it helps you just give you a space to jot down some thoughts, some questions, some ahas, etc. So we'll go with that. And we want to start off with just some objectives in terms of what we're doing today. We're looking at shared leadership. We're looking at purpose. We're looking at mindset, priorities, and then we're really going to get down and talk about real life experiences that we face in elementary schools, whether we're talking barriers, resources, and then some promising practices that we've picked up from people doing the work, right? Grantees that are doing the work, that are out there, that have been doing it for some time, and that know a little bit more than us. And all we're trying to do is get information, collect information, and share information with everybody, and so we can all grow together for our kids. So let's start with our shared leadership and our purpose. And we have a cool little video for you. Quick reminder, we may reference this model about the essential elements of inclusion. They include equitable, inclusive practices, inclusive policies, and a culture of inclusion all around you, our fabulous inclusive leaders. And so keep that in mind, keep this theoretical framework in mind as we matriculate through the afternoon. But first, we'll start with leadership, and leadership always starts with the why. Just a quick video for, hopefully you haven't seen it. If you have, enjoy it. We do every time we watch it. If you have not seen it, enjoy it. I think you'll like it.
This is called How Do I Know? And a lot of times when people hear the phrase, how do I know? The next thing they say is what? How do I know what? But the key really isn't to know what. The key is to know why. Because when you know your why, you have options on what your what can be. For instance, my why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. My what is stand-up comedy. My what is writing books. My what can be going out with some friends to eat. In fact, another what that has moved me towards my why is a web series that we have out now called Break Time. So every Wednesday at 3 o'clock, you should subscribe to the channel. We do a series called Break Time on YouTube. So 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode. One episode in particular, I'm about to show you a clip to. We were in Winston-Salem. So break time, this is how it works. I travel the country, I do stand-up comedy, probably an hour, hour and a half at an event. And in the middle of my show, I'll just sit down and start talking to the audience. And funny just happens. Or I'll meet somebody who's really interesting. So I met this one guy, and he said that he teaches music at a school. I was like, all right, you teach music, you know, can you sing? And then I'm just gonna show you the clip. Check it. So you're a musical director. Cool.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Wow. That bro could sing, you know what I'm saying? All right. Now, what you give me the version is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick, if you know which version I'm talking about. Just see if that exists. Let me see what you got.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Okay. So,
I see.
So here's the thing. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time I asked him to sing, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what has more impact because you're walking in or towards your purpose.
And that's us. That is us. Our why as kids is including kids, is providing access and opportunity and creating inclusive spaces that are better for kids and all learners. What we do is put together a schedule. What we do is create structures, but our why is always the kids and our teachers. And so here we are. So moving along, we're probably going to skip inclusive policy. I'm not going to lie to you, because who wants to talk about policy? But let's talk about a culture of inclusion real quickly. All right. Everything has culture, right? You've heard that, all those quotes, right? Like if you don't manage culture, culture manages you. And if your culture is perfectly designed to get the results you're getting, as you can see in our triangle, in our pyramid, right? And what's the other one? There's a bunch of them, but you guys get the picture, right? And so your district, your organization at the macro level has its culture, right? Its set of beliefs and actions that kind of drive the organization and gets the results that we're getting, right? So does your school, and your school has a different culture than the school down the street in the same district, the school across the way, across town, maybe in a different district, very different, right? Culture is going to vary because the beliefs and the actions on each site are going to differ. People differ, right? Our scheduling and the way we do things, the what and the how that we do things is also going to differ. And so this is going to be really, really important for us, because what we are doing is creating experiences. We're going to leverage the master schedule to do that, but we are creating experiences to start shaping the beliefs or reshaping the beliefs of those we serve towards a belief system that holds inclusion at the center as our why. Okay. And when we have that, the actions people act in accordance to their beliefs, and the action, and then we get the results that we're looking for. And we do a whole bit on moving culture and changing culture, but that's a quick nutshell, because we're not here to spend time talking about culture necessarily, but we can't neglect or ignore culture because it's everywhere. All right. So let's jump in and talk real quick about practice. But before we do that, if you have the processing guide available, take a second, start jotting down ideas about your why. What is your why? Right? I gave you mine, right? Kids. Always about kids, about access, about creating opportunity and things like that. What's yours? If you are so inclined and are feeling bold and want to throw some keywords or phrases that resonate with you, that that you are proud of, by all means, do that in the chat. We welcome them. But this is an opportunity for you to, in your mind, right? You might be sitting in your office, maybe by yourself, an opportunity for you to be alone with your thoughts for a second and jot down your why. Okay? Don't have to do it right this moment, but it's an opportunity to, because it's going to come back as we proceed through this, through our activity. So that's it. The first thing we tell people is we are here to help you innovate. We innovate ourselves and we want to help you innovate, right? And the reason for that is obvious, because times change, people change, kids change, teachers change. If we don't change with them and we don't help systems change along with them, right? That gets frustrating for folks. So we're here to innovate, but we also know that there are barriers and things that are out of our control that limit maybe our creativity or limit our innovation, right? So there's always this idea of thinking outside the box, but we all work in a box, right? We've got board policies and collective bargaining agreements and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of that is real. And so how can we innovate and create something new for our students, given the parameters that each of us work in every day, right? And so for those of you who have read George Couros, this idea of innovating inside your box, like how can I innovate? How can I be creative? What can I do that is the best I can with what I got? Okay. So this idea of looking through a variety of lenses to find the best option for those we serve. One quick video. Hopefully you haven't seen it, but if you have, enjoy.
I used to be a cat. Every day the same. I'd be aloof till lunch, then coldly indifferent after. To me, everything was just, yeah. Then it hit me. Why be so cat? Why not be a bit more dog? I mean, look at the world today. It's amazing. Running, amazing. Chasing cars, amazing. Sticks, amazing. Carpe diem. It means grab the frisbee. Maybe we should all be a bit more dog. Be more.
And this is no offense to the cat lovers out there, right? This is a judgment-free zone, but this idea that things don't have to be what they've always been, right? We can reimagine things, we can be creative, we can do things differently if that means it is better for our teachers and better for our students and really gets us closer to our why, right? All right, so let's get into it. We've kind of laid this, we've laid a little bit of a foundation in terms of understanding our why, understanding that culture is there. And so just keeping those ideas kind of at the forefront of what we're doing and then jumping into inclusive practices surrounding scheduling, right? And I want to preface by saying I use this process, SIP used this process to learn with everybody, right? And so we really relied on practitioners and then some of our experiences as well. And so if you have something that is very different, if you're working in something that is like just an outlier situation, by all means, drop that in the chat and we can all learn together, right? Janelle is on standby to monitor the chat. Thanks, Janelle. We love you. But here we go. All right. First and foremost, right? When we are approaching this whole idea of creating a master schedule in a school setting that doesn't historically have a traditional master schedule like you might see at a secondary level, right? There's no periods, there's no rotating students, etc. Most elementary schools tend to have a group of students who stay with the teacher all day. They may go have a different teacher for physical education or arts or something like that. But generally speaking, they spend the bulk of their time with one teacher, right? And so the idea of a master schedule just looks very, very, very different. So how might we be able to bridge those two concepts to create something maybe a little more, just a little different, right? Maybe get us closer to our why. So are we right? Right? Start with you. Start with your why. What is it? Do you know it? Did you write it down? Do you have it on a post-it somewhere? Right? Is it in, do you have it somewhere? Right? You don't have to write it down, but do you know it? Is there a clear vision? Right? So you know your why. Now we've created this vision of saying we want to do this so that kids have access or so that whatever, right? Like taking your why and articulating it as a vision, right? And then have we shared that vision with stakeholders, people who might ask questions, the people we're going to be working with, okay? And then all of this, remember, we're talking about culture. So yes, there's leadership involved here, but we're also talking about culture, right? And we are going to act in accordance with our beliefs. So what beliefs do we hold about our students, about our teachers, about inclusion in general, right? If we don't believe that this is something worthwhile, I mean, you're here, so we're assuming you do, right? But if we don't hold beliefs that are going to support innovative actions and inclusive actions, we're going to get stuck. So again, an opportunity to reflect, take a second, get your processing guide out and jot down a couple ideas, right? Your why, we just did that, your vision, what's your mindset, what kind of beliefs are you holding about the people in your building, okay? So you have a clear vision for what this might look like. If you don't, that's okay, right? Like this may be something very new to us. So just because we can't see a direct path to success does not mean you don't have a vision for it, right?
Another thing that makes me think about is for those who are looking to redesign or even maybe consider a complete overhaul to their master schedule. I think about the pyramid you just showed us, right? And the experiences that we're creating for teachers and how many times we've been in a space. I know this happened to me a few times as teachers as a teacher, where my leadership came to me and told me, okay, we're going to make this change tomorrow. It's effective tomorrow. I had no conceptual understanding for why that change was happening, and then ready, set, go, right? And so then we're like, oh, but they didn't buy into it. Well, I just think about that experience and how it may have been different if I understood why that change was happening and how that could have impacted my buy-in, perhaps.
Yeah, no, absolutely, right. And there are, as leaders, you may be more, maybe more cautious risk takers. You may have more, maybe a higher sense of self-efficacy in terms of figuring things out and getting through the change or whatever. But we work with people who are not that way, who need that clarity. They need an articulated purpose and a vision and stuff like that. So what is yours? All right, reflect on it. For those of you who dropped some of your why statements in the chat, thank you for that. Your vision is probably going to be aligned similar to that. So as we transition, let's talk about the next thing we got to talk about, our priorities, right? Because creating a list of priorities is an action, and that action is going to align to our beliefs, right? So our beliefs are A, B, and C, right? Access, opportunity, inclusion, teachers, students, etc. We have a variety of beliefs for a variety of stakeholders, right? And our priorities for all students may sound or look a little different when we're talking about, or when we compare our priorities to the communities or parents or other stakeholders, right? And so, again, this idea of being purposeful and intentional about writing things down, not to waste time, right? Like, I don't want to do this. We're creating the time for you right now as an exercise for you to start jotting down your priorities. So you have your processing guide. There's a section there for our priorities. Take a minute, jot some notes down. It doesn't have to be a thorough list of anything, right? The idea is that you put your priorities down, because prioritizing those things and getting your priorities in order is going to help you when you get into this process, and then you're stuck between an ethical dilemma and you have to choose between option A, which is good, and option B, which is good, but they serve different priorities. And now you can come back to this list and say, well, option B is really the higher priority, so we'll go with that, right? So that's really, these are going to be kind of these guiding principles. Again, really giving almost like an embodiment to what our why looks like in priority form. Okay. So each stakeholder, maybe you have different priorities, maybe you don't have any priorities for yourself necessarily, so leave the principal blank if you're the principal, right? But this idea of what people need for this schedule to be inclusive and for it to truly support the people you're trying to serve. Okay. Now, so we've looked at our why, we've looked at our vision, we've looked at our priorities, we have an understanding of all of those things. We've taken a second to jot them down. By the way, if you have a priority for I know a lot of people shared their purpose and vision for students, but let's not neglect our teachers, right? So if you have a great priority and but it's for our teachers, throw it in the chat. Like, maybe you're seeing something that we haven't seen, and so other people can read that too and kind of reflect, and maybe it'll resonate with other people. Something to think about. Okay. So now let's talk about some things that might get in the way. All right. So in the chat, all right, it is very, very normal for people, okay, to think about and list all the reasons why something may not work. We all, it is 100% normal. We all do it, and we all do it more than we'd like to admit. Now, we probably get out of that mindset quicker than others, but we get there. It's just normal. So right now, as I'm talking about the first barrier that comes to mind when you're thinking about making this schedule more inclusive for students, drop it in the chat. The first one that comes to mind, staffing. Perfect. Resources, staffing. Oh, that's training. So PD. Oh, Kristen, you are speaking to my heart, right? Mindset, right? We've always done it this way. It's how it's always been, right? How do we fit it all in, right? Like the logistics of it all. Yep, right. Mindset, PD, teacher-centered decision versus student-centered. I love it. PD time, protected time to collaborate. Lovely. I love it. Right. Kristen, that's a great idea. Great point, right? We always want to do our reading and math in the morning when the kids are fresh, and we'll save all the other stuff, the PE and all this other stuff for the afternoon. Sharing the wealth versus picking the right teacher fit. Nicole, man, you guys are good. But so needless to say, no shortage of barriers, right? Staff buy-in and mindset. Bunch of you put that in there, right? Credentialing, maybe less of a problem, but it might be a problem, right? Your collective bargaining agreement may or may not hinder, may or may not be a barrier. I don't know. I don't read them for fun because never mind. Right? But we all have them. They're there. They're part of our reality, and they're part of the box that we have to work within. And so is the collective bargaining agreement inclusive, or does it provide barriers for you to be able to do this? Staffing, right? Go to your reaction, the little reaction button that you have there, and raise your hand or put a thumbs up if you don't have enough staffing. Right? It's probably going to start popping up. It's going to be right? It's just our reality, right? Data, accurate IEPs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so the reason we are bringing this up, right, is because as you are working on your why, and as you are focusing on your priorities and your vision, it would be naive of us to not acknowledge the barriers or the box that we have to innovate within. All right. But it would also be irresponsible of us to dwell on these things and let them hinder us, right? The trick is, which of these barriers can you work around? Can you mitigate? And what are the ones that just are what they are? And what are the ones that might be what we make them? Okay. Again, that idea of just a different lens to look at something. Okay. And we're going to get into that here in just a quick second. So take a second, jot down if there's something changes in working conditions. Great question. Why should a few kids guide the day for all the rest? Very, very fair question, right? But that's a mindset. That's a belief question, right? And I'm assuming, Josh, you're not asking that. You're putting it out there rhetorically as an example. If it is a question, Janelle will be right on that. But you're right. And the reason that thank you, Josh. And the reason we schedule everybody around the few is because those few have different needs. This is literally defining equity. This is what equity looks like to people. Because when we do this and when we answer that question, Josh, what we are doing is creating an experience, and everybody who sees this and everybody who hears the answer to that question is going to walk away from that conversation believing, yep, inclusion is not what we do, it's who we are. Okay, so within the same vein that we talk about barriers, we've got resources. So let's talk about resources. Okay, again, chat box, open that puppy up. What is the first resource that comes to mind that you can reimagine or reallocate or use differently that might make this schedule thing actually work? And it might be one of the barriers you listed. Melanie, I love it. TOSAs. Why not? If you got them, use them. Ed specialists, paraprofessionals. Carrie, I love it. Push in. Why pull kids out of class? They're there. Leave them there. Deborah, I love that. We have expertise. So thank you to everybody who's posting. And by the way, keep that chat box up. Keep posting your stuff, because somebody's going to put something in there that we have not thought about. But to everybody's point, what resources do we have? We've got flexible grouping. We may be able to adjust caseloads. Maybe we can't. Maybe they just are what they are, right? But we have teachers. Somebody put earlier about relationships and partnerships with teachers and co-teachers. Leverage that. Your teachers are probably friends, right? Most teachers have a friend on campus. Leverage that, right? They've got long relationships. Maybe you're new to your school. Your teachers might not be. Leverage that, right? Your teachers have expertise. Somebody said earlier, what about our paraprofessionals? What about our ed specialists? Yeah. Are we leveraging those experiences, that expertise? Are we leveraging it as a resource specialist versus a content expert? Can we blend the two? Can we marry the two and create a co-teaching partnership that is impactful for students, right? Maybe you've got counselors on campus. Maybe you have EL TOSAs. Maybe you've got other TOSAs that are credentialed experts, credentialed teachers. And are we really using them to their maximum potential to get the best out of them and provide the best for kids? Maybe you are. Maybe we're not. I don't know. I'm not with you. But what options do we have there, right? And then lastly, I really want to go back to that video of viewing things through a different lens, because your creativity, nobody can limit your creativity. And if you are not a creative person and you're just like, oh, I'm struggling to solve this solve this problem, that's okay. That's what this is for. Log in. Like you are in a small community right now of like-minded people who are trying to solve the same problem, right? So right now, if you're working through your processing guide and you're trying to identify resources that you want to leverage, right? And you're unsure how, throw it in the chat. Somebody will pop in there and give you an idea. Promise you. We got, I don't even know how many people are here. We have 40 something people here. There's an expert in the room. Or even if we're not experts, there's somebody who's tried something in the area that we're looking to solve. So throw stuff in the chat. Please don't be shy. We're all here for the same reason. And if we can all get to the end, not a bad deal, right? Pretty good deal. So our why, our purpose, we got all that. We synthesized that down to create a list of priorities. We have acknowledged that there are barriers, some we can control and some we simply cannot. And that is what it is. We understand that we have resources, some that we are maximizing and some that we can still leverage into more for our students, okay? So we're jotting down our notes. Now, let's get into the nitty gritty. All right, so we're reflecting, again, barriers and resources, right? Which can you control? What resources have we talked? Oh, we didn't even talk about rooms, right? I'll give you an example from my experience. Had a student shared a class with my daughter, and they were scheduled to be on the second floor because the school building has a second floor. But my daughter's friend has received special education services, and their model is a pull-out model. Great. And the student has some physical limitations that make going up and down stairs not quite as safe. And the preference is for children to not use the elevator by themselves. So they moved the student out of the classroom that probably could have been a better fit for her and moved her to a different class. And so now I got to explain to my daughter why that happened and why her best friend is no longer in that class, right? Have we thought about our classrooms and our spaces as resources? Another example, some colleagues down in Orange County, they had declining enrollment. So a lot of us do. Great. What that means, unfortunately, is over time, colleagues that have retired did not get replaced. What that left them was empty classrooms that they now turned into collaborative or co-teaching spaces for their inclusive practices. And it just gave teachers an extra space to do some small group stuff, to do some reteaching, et cetera, et cetera. So again, this idea of, making the most of what we got. Okay. All right. Ooh, did Anna put something cool in there? Janelle, check that out. I'm super nosy right now.
Danny, I love this tool. Anna put the Swiss Schools master scheduling tool in there, and I've referred this to a lot of folks in reference to often when helping build their master schedule. It's a very good tool.
Oh, love it. Love it. Thank you, Anna. We owe you one.
I'll add it to the Padlet for everyone.
Oh, super cool. Thanks. All right. So the idea of mental agility to find resources and find opportunity where we once saw barriers or limitations. Check this out. I hope you like it.
I have a lot of memories from when I was a child. One that's always stuck out to me, though, was when I was about 10 years old and I was in school and I struggled. And I didn't struggle with English, math, or science. I struggled holding still. And I would try to listen and focus and process ideas, but I couldn't help myself. And to be honest, I would sit there and then I would just start tapping. And the students in the class would look at me and they'd say, "Hey, stop tapping." A lot of the time, I didn't even realize I was doing it. And then eventually even the teachers got after me and they would yell at me and they'd say, "Clint, you have to stop tapping." It got so bad that I got sent to the principal's office for tapping. And he said to me, "Okay, maybe when you go back to class, just try sitting on your hands." And so I did. I went back to class, and when I felt myself starting to tap, I did this. I sat on my hands. And that worked for about 5 seconds. One time I was tapping in class, and my teacher, Mr. Jensen, he looked at me and he yelled. And he said, "Clint, stay after class." And I thought to myself, this is it. I am done. Now, I've always been the type of person that believes that a single moment in time can change a person's life. And this was one of those moments for me. And I will never forget it. And so I was sitting there with Mr. Jensen and an empty classroom. And he walked past me and he sat next to his desk and he said, "Clint, come here. I want to talk to you." And as he looked me right in the eye, he said, "Now, I need you to know something. You're not in trouble. But I do have just one question that I have to ask you." And he asked, he said, "Have you ever thought about playing the drums?" And in that moment, Mr. Jensen, he leaned back and he opened the top drawer of his desk. And he reached in and he pulled out my very first pair of drumsticks. And he held them in his hands and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, Clint, you're not a problem. I think you're a drummer." And from that moment on, I've never put those sticks down. I've toured, recorded, and played drums all over the world. My whole college education was paid for with drumsticks in my hand. Just because of a single moment in time when somebody believed in me And he saw something in me that I didn't even see within myself. And from that moment, I learned that there's a difference between being the best in the world and being the best for the world.
I could watch that every single day. I don't know about you guys, but I could watch it every single day. Just finding resources out of barriers, finding opportunity out of challenge. I love it. Love the video. Anyway, thank you for humoring me. I appreciate that. All right, let's move on to the nitty-gritty. All right. So really, really important idea, this concept, right? That our teachers and our kids work in the system, but you as leaders work on this system, right? So what we're trying to do is build the structures for them to work within that support the work they want to do. Okay, so what kind of structures are we building for time, right? Co-teaching cannot happen without co-planning. Have we built in time for that? Right? It doesn't happen by accident, and we can't just rely on luck or coincidence, right? We talked earlier about our staff and our PD and their training, right? And their mindset, right? How are we building capacity? What kind of structures and plans do we have for their professional learning, right? And when we say there, we mean all. Like, we are including all of our resources, our paraprofessionals, our TOSAs, our ed specialists, our gen ed teachers, right? Like, this is a collective thing, because one of the things we're talking about, remember, when we're talking about your culture, is the collective belief system, the cultural beliefs that are shaping the actions in your building. And so what kind of plans do we have in place to start shifting those as well, right? In terms of building capacity and building a culture of inclusion. What about data, right? In our experience, ed specialists have the most intimate knowledge of kids' IEPs. Is that information being shared? And if so, how? Is it efficient? What structures do we have in place, right? Like, we know when you're, if you're not a K-8, when your students leave your school to go to a middle school, there's some type of like transition meeting that happens, right? And somebody comes down and we have this meeting and we tell them, oh, well, this is Danny's IEP and these are his needs and this is et cetera, et cetera. Lovely. How's that information being shared year to year, teacher to teacher, so that every teacher knows every kid's name and can support all the learners in his or her classroom, right? What are the kids' needs? What are your numbers? How are they distributed by grade? How are they impacting caseload? All of this stuff, right? We'll talk about that, give you an example here in just a second, right? What structures are you putting in place for co-teaching? Now, we're using co-teaching because it is intricate, right? There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of people involved. Now, if you're doing co-teaching or you're doing something else, like, you're still going to need to put a structure in place, put something in place so that it can happen, right? But in terms of co-teaching, who's teaching with who? Who's partnered with who? Why are they teaching together? Like, what's the method behind the madness, right? What kind of agency have you built with your team so that none of this is happening to them, but that they are doing this with you for students, right? And then what kind of assignments and teaching and scheduling, and when can we teach reading and math, and it's not always in the afternoon and stuff like that. But somebody correct me if I'm wrong, it was put in the chat earlier, everybody wants to teach science and social science and PE and arts and all that. Everybody wants to do that after lunch. That's what we do in the afternoon. Reading and writing and math happen before lunch. It is my understanding that teachers dictate that, right? And so how are we collaborating with teachers so that they can move their times around and their teaching schedules around so that they can meet kids' needs with their co-teacher at times that it can all work out. And I'll explain what that means here in a little bit. So a couple of examples, right, of a couple structures, right? So if we can envision today, right, we're going to take our co-teaching partnership and whatever structures and what the process we did there. We're taking this idea of scheduling and caseloads, our resource allocation, a collaboration communication structure, a co-planning structure, et cetera, and then learning for all, right, even the adults. And we are going to create and bring it all together in some type of harmonious fashion. So what does that mean? Let's start with them and then kind of funnel this thing down. When we do our research and when we work with grantees about co-teaching and around co-teaching, right, we are always stressing the importance of the co-teaching partnership and the relationship. And one of the 5 critical elements is this idea of parity, right? And all the research says that you have to have it. It's a critical component if this is going to be successful. And what we mean by that is that all our teachers view each other as capable, as equal, as contributors to the success of all children, right? We're breaking down the silos. We are breaking down a hierarchy of content specialist, grade level teacher is superior than in some way than an ed specialist or a TOSA or what have you, right? And so we're really flattening that out so that we are all teachers and we are all here for all students, right? So, and this is a big, typically a mindset hurdle on a lot of campuses, right? You don't have to answer that, but it's a thing. It's a thing. I remember very vividly my teachers, my ed specialists saying, I hate going into a gen ed classroom and feel like I'm being looked down upon as less than, as not equal. And nobody really wants to go to work that way, right? So we have our gen ed teachers, we have our paras, we have our ed specialists. Maybe you have speech and language people, adaptive PE, you've got TOSAs, you've got it's everything that you guys listed there. How are we mixing and matching these partnerships to make this work, to provide kids the services they need based on their IEP, right? Okay, that's one structure we're talking about. Now we're starting to build this idea of a schedule, and we are going back to these things of niceties and necessities, and we'll talk about that here in a second, okay? But I want you to look at towards the top of your processing guide and start looking at your why and looking at your priorities, okay? Think about the structures you've built. You've built a co-teaching structure. You've talked about, you've created time for people to co-plan and collaborate. You've built a structure, a process where data and information gets shared more freely so people can access the students' needs, their IEP goals, et cetera. You have balanced out caseloads whenever possible. And you've invested in your co-teaching relationships. Okay, that's a different workshop, but you've invested in fostering and building and strengthening the relationships among your co-teachers, right? And so you've done that work, you've done that legwork. Let's talk about this idea of necessities and niceties, right? And just like it sounds, these are needs versus wants, okay? The needs are everything that makes your school go, right? That makes it a comprehensive elementary school, a comprehensive learning environment for students, like the arts, like an LRE continuum, like PE and social science and et cetera, right? And you're working on your culture. These are necessities for your school to go, right? Kids need music and art and PE, et cetera, okay? The niceties are they are byproducts of the belief system of your old culture, all right? You've worked to put a plan in place and start addressing and tackling your cultural beliefs. You have new cultural beliefs that support the results you're looking for, which is more inclusive settings, more students in the least restrictive environment, et cetera, et cetera. So we've addressed these cultural beliefs. When the cultural beliefs and the scheduling requests or demands from teachers or other stakeholders don't align with that, those are niceties, right? And that goes back to your list of priorities and your why. For example, I've always taught first grade. I only teach first grade, right? That's about me. That's not about our organization. That's not about our school. That's not about our kids, right? Now, maybe I'm the best first grade teacher you've got, and maybe you were going to put me in first grade anyway. That's fine. But when I, as your teacher, feel like I am a grade, or I am a program, or I'm the only one who does this because that's what I've done for 18 years or whatever, right? Those are niceties. Okay. My room assignment, right? Maybe I'm in an upstairs classroom, but I have a student who needs to access my class who's got some physical limitations. I might need to be moved downstairs, right? Again, inclusion isn't what we do, it's who we are. And so, all right, you got to be on the first floor, Danny, because we have a student and she's wheelchair bound and she needs to be able to get to class. Just is what it is, right? But again, you're creating these experiences that are shaping the beliefs that we are going to move room assignments, grade assignments, scheduling. We are going to do what we need to do to be inclusive of all our learners, right? These are the priorities. These are what we want to do. So here's one example of a structure that was put into place to balance caseloads and things like that, right? And so special shout out to our friends over up at Chime in Woodland Hills, I think they are out there. They assign point values, right? So the students with the most with the highest needs and the most extensive needs had probably more IEP goals. Maybe they had more supports that they needed. They probably accrued more case management points. And so they were assigned differently, right? You'll notice that room 13 has 5 students and 30 points. Room 15 has a different 5 students, but fewer points. And you'll notice that the last room also has a number of students and a different set of points. And then look at their resource allocation, right? One room's getting 2 paraprofessionals, one's only getting 1.5 because I got fewer points, right? It's an equitable distribution of resources based on need and based on caseload, not based on equality, but really equity, right? The class 15 with 21 points is very different than class 13 with 30 caseload points. Same number of kids, much different need, right? Student A has a lot more needs than any of students F through J, right? So again, this idea of rethinking and reallocating what our resources are and can look like, okay? Now, what does a schedule look like? I don't know. Here's an example. All right, this is my schedule. I am an ed specialist, right? I support 2nd and 3rd grade. You will see there that I work at Lucky Kids Elementary School. All right, we got 500 students. Mr. Q is my paraprofessional, or Miss Q. I think she's with me, or maybe it's Mrs. L. I don't know. Anyway, but you can see here that in 2nd grade, we put together the structure. There are 4 kids total with 12 total points. So we decided to put them all in one room because it worked. But in 3rd grade, we have 7 kids, but we've got 4 points or 20 points. And one of them in Mr. N's class, pretty extensive needs, right? 2 students as opposed to 5 in Mrs. T's class. Fantastic. All right. So this is when second and third grade, they have lunch or they have PE on Wednesdays. We're going to co-plan during that time. They have art or music or whatever after lunch in the afternoon on Mondays. And so we'll co-plan then. The rest of the time I'm floating and co-teaching, as is my my paraprofessional, pushing in, supporting all learners in the class, not just our students with disabilities. And again, just an example of what it could look like, right? These are all times I may have been pulling out students from second, third grade anyway. But instead of pulling them out and taking them somewhere else, I'm just going to them. Okay. We have a question. Awesome. Is it Bhavna? I hope I got that right.
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Yes, no problem. So the point system, let's get back to it. So the point system is not necessarily, the idea is not to approach it from a deficit mindset, right? Right. So like every student starts off with 1 point because they have a current IEP, right? But writing an IEP versus writing a triennial IEP is a different experience. It's a different workload for teachers, right? And so the students who are scheduled for a triennial this year are going to get that extra point, right? Not a burden, but just to, in an effort to quantify the work that, or the work that that student is going to require, the attention that student's going to require. Right? Because the time it is going to take you to write my IEP, because I have a triennial due this year, you're going to spend a lot more time writing my IEP than you are writing Janelle's. Not different, just more, right? It's a more involved process. Right.
I would also add, just from my experience using a similar sort of rubric, I would say there's a lot of variability. We know with rubrics, it's not always going to be exact, but it's a start to the conversation. And from my experience, relying on case manager input in addition to the rubric and some of those qualitative conversations is what starts to balance all of this. But I know, to get started on that, we were using a very traditional model of assigning students to caseload into classes that was based on disability labels, and taking these sort of steps just allowed us to really think outside the box, even to the point of, let's be honest, there's some people who can support some caseload, some students and families differently than others. I mean, those sort of things matter, right? Relationships matter. And so I would say, in addition to using a rubric like this, allow space for conversation and flexibility, because all of that is what's going to make your master schedule the best it can be.
Yeah, and we know that the kids come to us with parents and guardians, and that's another layer. And not all of those relationships are as amicable as we would like them to be. And so, I imagine that throughout our careers, we have worked with 2 students with an IEP who took up more time than 10 students with an IEP, right? Just because of parents and guardians and the number of IEP goals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is just noting that, quantifying that, so that when I get my caseload and I have 3 students and Janelle gets her caseload and she's got 7 students, we can see that there's an understanding and a knowledge and an acceptance, because we've been part of this process. And we'll talk about that here in a second, because the 3 that I have The three students on my caseload are just going to require a different amount of time and work and attention than Janelle's, if that makes sense. So it's not coming from a deficit mindset necessarily. We're acknowledging that all our students do have their needs, some just more than others.
Mhm. Thank you.
Okay, so we've broken it down. We've talked about a schedule, and this goes right back now to what Janelle was just talking about, right? If we think that we are doing this by ourselves, we're going to create something that is being done to our teachers. And like Janelle mentioned earlier, people she would have bought in better had she known the why and with the priority. And we've gone through these steps to engage our team, right? Because what are people hold on one second. Carrie, sorry guys, one second, just want to address Carrie's question. No, Carrie, we're talking about everybody, because we're not talking about necessarily the ed specialist, just the ed specialist, right? Like having 3 students with an IEP, like here, if you look here, because we've based it on student need and data, and we've kind of quantified caseloads, you'll notice that all students in 2nd grade are in one gen ed classroom, whereas the 7 students in 3rd grade are split amongst 2. All right.
So there's 2 benefits to that. And
ahead.
one thing to watch out for. One benefit is obviously then the resource teacher can go, push in or co-plan or co-teach with one general education teacher, if we're looking at it from that perspective, right? Now, what you really want to watch out for and kind of plan for is that means that 2nd grade gen ed teacher may have more, I don't want to call it work, but need to participate in things like IEP meetings or input on progress reporting and that sort of thing. So you just want to make sure that you're not completely overloading that one teacher and not sharing, spreading out students with IEPs. If there are students with IEPs who can be supported in another 2nd grade class with paraeducator support, because that's what their IEP says, then hey, use that other 2nd grade class, right? Like what we don't want to happen is automatically now start placing students in classrooms just because they're the quote unquote co-taught class, as if inclusion can't happen in all spaces and places, right? So just some things to consider when you are looking at this. And again, I go back to, it's about the flexibility. It was not uncommon that we would create our master schedule, and by week 3, we were making changes because we learned that this group, it's not working. Let's mix that up again, right? So be flexible and fluid in the process.
And guys, for anybody who's got their chat box up, take a look at this idea that Deborah just introduced. She was 100% spot on. We're talking about special education as services, not a placement, because all students are gen ed students first. Right. And we want to create spaces where students can access the least restrictive environment and get services, special education services, not be placed somewhere else to get those services. So Deborah, thank you for hitting the nail on the head. It's really about services and how extensive those service needs are. Okay. But to this point right here, and to Janelle's point about engaging your team, all right, our teachers and people are just intrinsically motivated by purpose, by mastery, and by autonomy, meaning give them a reason, allow them to get good at it and practice it, and give them the space to choose what we're doing, how we're doing it, when we do it, and who we're doing it. So anybody who's read Daniel Pink's book, Drive, these are the 4 T's of autonomy, right? Our task, our technique, our time, and our team, right? create the structure, give it to your team so that when we are scheduling, we are building a schedule and balancing it based on services, based on student needs, based on data, based on teacher input. You're creating a schedule. You're not telling them when to teach English, when to teach math, and when to co-teach and when to co-plan. They will do that for you. Our teachers are incredible when they are relied upon and believed in, and their expertise is leveraged and sought after. So to Janelle's point, think of a high touch process. Everybody gets a voice, lots of seats at this table. You're creating the structure, the system, you're working on the system, and then you're giving it to them, and they're going to tell you how they're going to work in that system. Okay, going back to whatever, number 5 or step 5 or slide 5 or whatever it was. Okay, so let them have a say in what they're doing. This shouldn't be happening to them. It should be happening with them. Yes, let them suggest placements, like Janelle said, right? Maybe we're gonna split up those 4 kids in the previous example into 2 classrooms because there's one student who's got just such an extensive amount of needs that student needs just needs more attention, but the other 3 could be finding in the same place. But we may not know that. We might, but we may not. Our teachers probably do. Okay.
So Danny, there's a really great question in the chat from Joanna. 2 ed specialists serving TK through 5th grade. That's a great range for 2 teachers. We understand the challenges there. So the question is in regards to recommend dividing caseloads. Do we do it by grade level or do we do it by student need? So what are the pros and cons to consider here? Do you want to get started with that? Do you want me to jump in?
Yeah, and I think this is really going to depend on your team, right? And so I think my recommendation, and Janelle, please chime in and correct me if I'm wrong. Ask your teachers. They know. Some of them are just maybe more comfortable supporting the younger kids. So maybe I'll do K all the way to 3 if Janelle is just okay doing 4 and 5. I'll figure it out. I'll do all 4 grades if Janelle can just figure out 4 and 5 for me, because whatever, I'm more comfortable with the younger students.
So it also matters on their depth of knowledge in various subject matters and their comfort with subject matter expertise, because
Grade level curriculum.
Right? Like I could see the benefit in me teaching only language arts because the concepts and the standards all loop, right? And then I have that large scope from TK all the way to 5th grade in terms of co-designing lessons. What you would want to consider if you are going based on subject matter is that you build in a process for both teachers to collaborate, both ed specialists to collaborate around IEPs. Because if I'm only teaching language arts, TK through 5th, then I am wanting to get input from the other ed specialists on how the student is progressing on math. Now, the flip side of that to consider is if they are only teaching one subject across all these grades, is now the gen ed teacher has 2 ed specialists to co-collaborate with. That might be a little bit more challenging, right? So really got to play around with it based on the expertise of your teachers and the preferences. Might start with grade level and then play around beyond that.
I love that. The only thing I might add to that is, who else can you leverage? Who else's expertise might you be able to leverage to maybe beef up this team? Instead of 2, maybe get it to 3 or 4, right?
Yeah,
That's
so
what I mean by that. I'm sorry, do you have Osa?
Well,
you
no,
have
yeah, exactly.
Let's see. Oh, of course, Carmen. She knows, she's what's up, man. She's the business.
All right, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think I have a lag on my side. I
Oh,
noticed
no.
there was also a comment about behavior. How can you leverage your counselor or school psychologist or behaviorist to come in, or even speech to come in and lead small group instruction to address some of the social skills or behavior aspects, social emotional learning, in addition to the ed specialist?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Again, you're building all these structures. What does MTSS and inclusive behavior supports look like on your campus? Right. How are we allowing all of our students to access tier 1 behavior support in the general ed classroom, just as a part of normal classroom management? And what do the tier 2 or tier 3 supports look like within the least restrictive environment? Can my counselor, behavior specialist, PBIS coach, et cetera, how can I leverage the expertise that's at my site, that's in my district, that's afforded to me, right? It is a big lift. It's a big ask to say just my 2 ed specialists are going to single-handedly pair up and bounce around. It's just a lot, right? And most of us have other supports available to us. And so those are the resources that we need to be able to leverage, find some creativity. If we're already doing SEL, it's part of who we are, it's part of what we do because we believe in the impact and the value of social emotional learning. Fantastic. Then who is the person that heads that? And do we pull kids out of class? Do we have experts that can push into class and co-teach SEL lessons, behavior management, behavior support, et cetera? Those are the structures that we're talking about. Those are the resources that we leverage. Janelle, did you get a chance to read Carmen's post? I don't know what she said, but it's probably going to be spot on.
It's spot on. It's a question. It's a great question. So Carmen was saying that there's folks on her in her system that like to cluster students with IEPs into general education classroom, but then there's others who like to spread them out further. And so she's asking, what is the recommendation that works best for allowing more inclusive practices? I will tell you firsthand, from my experience, the more 2 teachers can plan together and have less people to plan with, which would suggest clustering, right? That's where you're going to start to get the best opportunities to embed and include those inclusive practices, because now they're truly co-planning and co-designing that curriculum. So you're taking your gen ed teacher, who's your content area expert, and your special educator, who's your strategies expert, and you're bringing those brilliant minds together. So less teachers to co-plan with, better. But I also see where it's okay to spread kids out for other benefits and purposes, so that, you know, it doesn't just become, again, that those particular gen ed teachers are teaching in the quote unquote inclusion classrooms. We want to move away from those silos and be flexible. So it's okay to include, you know, to spread kids out for other purposes. Did that answer your question, Carmen?
Yes, it does. Thank you. And I think, again, using kind of your rating scale on students with IEPs, that point system could also help with how students are placed. Obviously, a student maybe just working on an RTIC goal in speech looks different than a student with 6 to 7 goals, including a focus on social skills, things like that. So there's a lot of those considerations.
Exactly. Carmen,
Absolutely.
great example.
Absolutely. Right. Like the reality is, time is finite. And so if I only have to find time in my week to co-plan with 3 teachers, that's a much easier ask of us than it is for me to try to co-plan with 6 teachers just for the sake of quote unquote spreading the wealth, right? Like, create the system that makes the most sense for your teachers and that's going to get the best bang for your buck for your kiddos. And it, like my co-planning is just going to be much more meaningful, much more impactful if I'm only asked to do it with 3 people as opposed to 6. We just start spreading too thin that way. And then again, the idea of leveraging other people and their expertise to be able to be part of these co-planning sessions as well. Right? Again, we're talking high touch, lots of hands, lots of hands in the kitchen, lots of seats at this table, lots of voices being heard and to be considered. The expertise is typically at our sites. Okay. And then lastly for us, this idea that details matter, like randomness is your enemy, right? Now, in the secondary setting, right, we create this schedule, you hit one button and kids just get dumped into a schedule. I imagine at the elementary level, it's a little different, right? Like there's a lot more, you know, if Danny and Janelle are both in the 2nd grade, both have IEPs, and the co-teacher is Mrs. Smith, then we can be input in Mrs. Smith's class with intentionality, because that's based on our needs, right? So again, schedule your students with disabilities first, get them in their co-taught classes. If that's, again, if that's their need and that's what their IEP calls for, think minutes, think services, not placements, rely on your data. And then again, collaborate with your team. Don't leave it to chance, leave it to experts who know your kids and who know their needs and can give you the input to make the best decision for those learners, right? So again, high touch, lots of voices, bring them together, right? And so we'll close with this idea. If you get nothing from this, right? If we've just like talked your ear off for an hour and a half and you get nothing else, start with your purpose, start with your why. It'll just give your teacher so much more clarity in terms of what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, if everybody's on the same page in terms of why we are doing this. Okay? Be intentional about it, collaborative, and rely on your data along the way. Data doesn't have to be numbers. Data can be anecdotes. Data can be qualitative data and feedback from your staff in your collaborative sessions, right? And then don't be random about it. Like you're going to invest all this time, you're going to invest all this energy. Don't let chance get in the way. Control the things you can control to make sure that we are starting with our students that have the most needs in our campus, whether or not they have an IEP. Start with the kids with the most extensive needs and then kind of build out from there. All right. And so we will, so we'll end there and we'll kind of wrap that up. What I do want to do is leave some time for some Q&A just in case they're popping up. And so I want to do that. But first, I have a small ask and a favor of you guys, right? When STIP, anytime we are doing anything, we are like relentless in our pursuit to be impactful and to help you. And so we are here for you. We want to make this the best for you. If you could take a moment, scan the QR code. There's going to be a link. The link has been dropped in the chat. Please provide us some feedback. If this helped, let us know what helped. If it didn't, please give us some feedback so we can improve this for next time. And for those who who were not able to join us this time, but who might join us next time. So we're going to move on, scan this. And again, we're going to hang out for a few minutes just in case there is some Q&A, but go out, conquer this. In the survey, there is a question that asks about what you may need going forward. Okay, if you need support or you want to get in touch with us, email us. Janelle, can you drop our email? Connect with us. I'll put mine in there too, just for what it's worth. And then our connect with SIP email, if that's easier for them. But go out, conquer this, give it a shot. Don't let the fear of the unknown stop us from doing what we're setting out to do, for doing what we believe to be the best and in our pursuit of why. So I will stop. Thank you for attending. I know you have a ton to do and so much you could be doing with your time. So spending it with us matters, and we do value your time. And so I'll stop. We'll do some Q&A while you guys are completing the feedback survey.